If you found yourself watching this video today, chances are you're living through something that feels impossible to explain to others. Maybe you're questioning your own reality, wondering if what you're experiencing at home is normal. Or perhaps you've started to feel like you're losing yourself entirely. The truth is, when you're married to someone with narcissistic tendencies, the signs aren't always obvious, especially to the outside world. Your wife might be charming, successful, even beloved by friends and family. But behind closed doors, you might be experiencing something entirely different, something that's slowly chipping away at who you used to be. Today, we're going to talk about the 10 silent signs that reveal when a husband is being emotionally destroyed by a narcissistic spouse. These aren't just relationship problems or normal marital disagreements. These are patterns of behavior that can fundamentally change who you are as a person. I want you to know, before we begin, that recognizing these signs isn't about blame or judgment. It's about understanding what's happening so you can begin to reclaim your sense of self. You are not alone in this experience. And more importantly, what you're feeling is valid. Number 1. You feel completely trapped in your own marriage. The first sign that something deeply troubling is happening in your marriage is that overwhelming feeling of being trapped, like you're in a prison with no visible way out. This isn't just about being unhappy in your relationship. This goes much deeper. When you're married to someone with narcissistic traits, they become exceptionally skilled at making you feel like escape is impossible. They might control the finances, making you dependent on them. They could threaten to ruin your reputation or take everything you've worked for if you try to leave. Perhaps they've convinced you that no one else would ever want you, or that you're the problem in the relationship. Take Robert, a 62-year-old retired teacher I spoke with recently. He described feeling like he was living in his own home as a prisoner. His wife controlled every aspect of their social calendar, their finances, and even what he was allowed to eat. When he tried to suggest they go to counseling, she laughed and told him that he was the one who needed help, not her. The psychological impact of this kind of control creates what experts call learned helplessness. Your brain actually adapts to the constant messages that you can't change your situation. And over time, you stop trying. It's a survival mechanism, but it can keep you stuck long after you might have had the opportunity to make different choices. If you're feeling this way, the first step is recognizing that this trapped feeling itself is a sign that something isn't right. Healthy marriages don't leave either partner feeling like a prisoner in their own life. Number 2, you're always walking on eggshells at home. Your home should be your sanctuary, the place where you can truly be yourself and feel at peace. But when you're living with someone who has narcissistic patterns, home becomes a minefield where one wrong step can trigger an explosion. You find yourself constantly monitoring your words, your tone, even your facial expressions. You've learned to read the subtle signs of your wife's mood changes, and you've become an expert at adjusting your behavior to try to prevent conflict. This constant hypervigilance is exhausting. The morning routine becomes a careful dance. You're listening for the tone of her voice when she says good morning, looking for clues about what kind of day you're going to have. You've probably even learned to predict which topics are safe to discuss and which ones will lead to hours or days of punishment through the silent treatment, criticism, or explosive anger. This heightened state of alertness isn't natural or healthy. It's actually a trauma response. Your nervous system is stuck in a state of constant alert because it never knows when the next attack might come. Over time, this can lead to serious physical and mental health problems, including chronic anxiety, depression, and even physical symptoms like headaches and digestive issues. Living this way changes your brain chemistry. The constant stress hormones flooding your system weren't meant to be active 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Remember, in a healthy relationship, both partners should feel safe to express their thoughts and feelings without fear of retaliation or punishment. Number 3, you've given up who you used to be to keep peace. Perhaps the most heartbreaking sign of being married to a narcissist is the gradual disappearance of your authentic self. You've become so focused on managing your wife's emotions and reactions that you've forgotten what you actually want or need. Think back to who you were before this relationship, or in the early days when things seemed different. Did you have hobbies you were passionate about? Friends you enjoyed spending time with? Dreams and goals that excited you? If you're struggling to remember that person, or if those things have slowly disappeared from your life, this is a significant warning sign. Consider Michael, a former executive who used to love woodworking and spending weekends fishing with his buddies. Gradually, his wife began criticizing these activities, calling them wastes of time or selfish pursuits. She would create crises or emergencies whenever he tried to engage in these hobbies, until eventually, he gave them up entirely to avoid the conflict. Now, at 70, he can barely remember what brought him joy. Narcissistic partners are particularly skilled at making you feel guilty for having needs, interests, or relationships outside of them. They might not explicitly forbid you from doing things you love, but they'll make it so unpleasant or complicated that you eventually choose to avoid the hassle. This gradual erosion of self happens so slowly that you might not even notice it until years have passed. You wake up one day and realize you don't really know who you are anymore outside of your role as your wife's husband. Your interests, opinions, and desires matter. They're not selfish or wrong for existing. Creating healthy boundaries around the things that matter to you isn't just okay, it's necessary for your well-being. Number 4, you're constantly trying to prove your worth to her. In a healthy marriage, both partners feel valued and appreciated for who they are, not just for what they can provide. But when you're married to someone with narcissistic tendencies, you might find yourself in a constant state of trying to earn approval that never quite comes. You might be working excessive hours to provide financially, handling all the household responsibilities, or constantly surprising her with gifts or gestures, hoping that this time, it will be enough to make her happy with you. But no matter what you do, it never seems to be sufficient. The goalposts keep moving. This creates an exhausting cycle where your self-worth becomes entirely dependent on your wife's approval. You start measuring your value as a person based on her reactions to you. When she's pleased, you feel good about yourself. When she's critical or distant, you feel worthless. The cruel reality is that narcissistic individuals often withhold approval intentionally because they understand that keeping you hungry for validation gives them power over you. They might give you just enough positive reinforcement to keep you trying, but never enough to make you feel secure in the relationship. This pattern can be particularly damaging for men who were raised to believe that their role is to provide and protect. When your efforts are consistently devalued or ignored, it can shake your fundamental sense of identity and purpose. Take a moment to think about this. Have you been running yourself ragged trying to make someone else happy while completely ignoring your own needs and well-being? That's not love, that's control. Number 5, you're suffering in complete silence. One of the most isolating aspects of being married to a narcissist is how alone you feel in your experience. You might have friends, family, or colleagues who see your wife as charming and wonderful, making it nearly impossible to explain what you experience behind closed doors. Narcissistic individuals are often skilled public performers. They can be charming, funny, and engaging in social situations, which makes your private reality seem almost impossible to believe. When you try to share your concerns with others, you might be met with responses like "she seems so lovely" or "you're so lucky to have her." This public persona versus private behavior creates a profound sense of isolation. You start to question your own perceptions and memories. Maybe you are being too sensitive. Maybe you are the problem. This self-doubt is exactly what your narcissistic spouse wants you to feel. The silence becomes a survival mechanism. You learn that talking about your problems doesn't bring relief or support. It brings more complications. So you stop trying to explain your reality to others, which leaves you trapped with your pain and confusion. But keeping everything inside takes a tremendous toll on your mental and physical health. Humans are social creatures. We need connection and support to thrive. When you're carrying this burden alone, it can lead to depression, anxiety, and a host of other health problems. You deserve to have people in your life who believe your experience and support you through difficult times. Your reality is valid, even if others can't see what you see. Number 6, you blame yourself for everything that goes wrong. When you've been in a relationship with someone who consistently refuses to take responsibility for their actions, you might find yourself taking responsibility for everything, including things that have nothing to do with you. This is one of the most psychologically damaging effects of narcissistic abuse. Narcissistic individuals are experts at deflection and blame shifting. When something goes wrong, it's always someone else's fault, and most often, it's yours. Over time, you internalize this pattern. You start automatically asking yourself what you did wrong whenever there's a problem. Even when the issue has nothing to do with your actions, this might show up as apologizing constantly, even for things that aren't your fault. You might find yourself saying, "I'm sorry" multiple times a day for everything, from the weather being bad to your wife having a difficult day at work. The psychological term for this is trauma bonding with the aggressor's narrative. Essentially, you adopt the worldview of the person hurting you as a way to try to make sense of an otherwise senseless situation. If everything is your fault, then theoretically, you have the power to fix it by changing your behavior. But here's the reality. You cannot love someone into treating you well. You cannot be perfect enough to stop someone else's abusive behavior. Their treatment of you reflects their character, not yours. Start paying attention to how often you apologize or blame yourself. Notice when you're taking responsibility for things that are genuinely beyond your control. This awareness is the first step toward reclaiming a realistic sense of personal responsibility. Number 7, you're desperately seeking her approval for everything. When you're married to a narcissist, your entire emotional world can start revolving around their approval or disapproval. You might find yourself seeking their permission or validation for decisions that should be entirely your own. From what to wear to how to spend your free time, this excessive need for approval doesn't develop overnight. It's the result of years of having your judgment questioned, your decisions criticized, and your autonomy gradually eroded. Over time, you lose confidence in your ability to make good choices independently. You might notice that you've stopped making even small decisions without first gauging your wife's reaction. What restaurant should we go to? What should I wear? Should I accept this invitation from a friend? Every choice becomes an opportunity for conflict, so you learn to defer to her preferences to avoid problems. This kind of codependency is emotionally exhausting and prevents you from developing or maintaining your sense of self. When your emotional well-being depends entirely on another person's approval, you're no longer living your own life. You're living as an extension of their preferences and moods. Remember, healthy relationships involve two independent individuals who choose to build a life together, not one person absorbing the other's identity. Your thoughts, preferences, and decisions have value. Even if your spouse disagrees with them, learning to trust your own judgment again takes time and practice. But it's essential for your mental health and self-respect. Number 8, you've lost touch with family and friends. Isolation is one of the most effective tools in the narcissist's toolkit. If you've noticed that your relationships with family and friends have become strained or non-existent since your marriage, this isn't a coincidence. Your wife might not explicitly forbid you from seeing people you care about, but she might make it so uncomfortable or complicated that you eventually stop trying. She could create emergencies whenever you have plans, make snide comments about your family and friends, or punish you with days of cold treatment after you spend time with others. Maybe she's told your friends and family negative things about you, making it awkward or difficult to maintain those relationships. Perhaps she monitors your phone calls or gets upset when you receive messages from people she doesn't approve of. Over time, it becomes easier to just avoid the conflict entirely. You stop making plans with friends. You visit family less often. And gradually, your world shrinks to just you and your spouse. This isolation serves multiple purposes for the narcissistic partner. It makes you more dependent on them for social connection. It eliminates outside perspectives that might help you see your situation clearly, and it removes potential sources of support if you ever decide to leave. But humans need multiple relationships to thrive. We need friends who knew us before our marriage, family members who love us unconditionally, and acquaintances who see us in different contexts. These relationships help us maintain our sense of self and provide reality checks when our primary relationship becomes unhealthy. If you've lost touch with people who were once important to you, consider reaching out, even if it feels awkward after a long absence. Most people who truly care about you will be happy to hear from you and won't judge you for the time that's passed. Number 9. You feel depressed and have lost interest in life. Perhaps one of the most serious signs that you're being psychologically damaged by your marriage is a persistent sense of sadness, hopelessness, and loss of interest in activities that once brought you joy. This isn't just being unhappy with your marriage. This is a fundamental shift in how you experience life itself. You might find that hobbies that once excited you now feel pointless. Activities that used to give you energy now feel exhausting before you even begin. You might be sleeping more than usual, or lying awake at night with racing thoughts. Food might taste bland, and colors might seem duller. Living in a constant state of stress, criticism, and emotional unpredictability changes your brain chemistry. The hormones associated with chronic stress can actually alter how your brain processes pleasure and motivation. Meanwhile, the constant psychological pressure can leave you feeling emotionally numb as a protective mechanism. Depression in this context isn't just a chemical imbalance that appeared randomly. It's your psyche's response to an impossible situation. When you're trapped in a relationship where nothing you do is ever good enough, where your efforts are consistently devalued, and where you're constantly walking on eggshells. Depression can be your mind's way of protecting you from further pain by numbing all emotions. But this numbness comes at a cost. When you shut down the painful emotions, you also shut down joy, excitement, and hope. Life becomes a matter of just getting through each day rather than actually living. If you're experiencing symptoms of depression, please take them seriously. This isn't a sign of weakness or failure. It's a sign that your emotional and psychological resources are being overwhelmed. Professional help can provide you with tools to cope and strategies to begin healing. Number 10. You're struggling with anxiety and secret addictions. The final sign we need to discuss is perhaps the most concerning. When the pain of your daily reality becomes unbearable, you might find yourself turning to substances or behaviors to numb the emotional chaos. This could be alcohol, prescription medications, work addiction, or other compulsive behaviors. Living with a narcissistic spouse creates a level of chronic stress that's difficult for others to understand. Your nervous system is constantly activated. You're always anticipating the next conflict or criticism, and you have no safe space to truly relax and recover. Some men in this situation develop what might seem like innocent coping mechanisms at first. Maybe you have a drink or two when you get home from work to take the edge off. Perhaps you've started taking anxiety medication more often than prescribed. Maybe you're working excessive hours because work feels safer than home. Or you're spending hours online escaping into games or other distractions. These behaviors often develop gradually and can be easy to rationalize. You're not using substances to get high. You're using them to feel normal. You're not avoiding your family. You're just staying busy. You're not addicted. You're just coping. But if you find that you need these substances or behaviors to get through your daily life, or if you're hiding the extent of your usage from others, this is a serious warning sign. It means your primary relationship has become so toxic that you need chemical or behavioral interruption just to survive it. The dangerous reality is that these coping mechanisms, while understandable, can quickly develop into their own problems. Substance abuse can damage your health, your work performance, and your relationships with people who actually care about you. It can also give your narcissistic spouse more ammunition to use against you. Conclusion. If you've recognized yourself in several of these signs, I want you to know that what you're experiencing has a name, and you're not alone in going through it. Being married to someone with narcissistic traits or full-blown narcissistic personality disorder is one of the most psychologically damaging experiences a person can endure, and the effects are real and serious. The most important thing to understand is that none of this is your fault. You didn't cause your spouse's behavior. You can't control it, and you can't fix it by being better, more loving, or more accommodating. Narcissistic abuse is about the abuser's need for control and superiority, not about anything lacking in you. But recognizing the problem is just the first step. Recovery from this kind of psychological damage takes time, support, and often professional help. You may need to rebuild your sense of self, reconnect with people who care about you, and learn to trust your own perceptions again. If you're in immediate danger or having thoughts of harming yourself, please reach out for help right away. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or contact a mental health crisis line in your area. For those who are ready to begin the journey of reclaiming their lives, consider reaching out to a therapist who understands narcissistic abuse. Look into support groups for people in similar situations. Reconnect with family and friends if possible. Most importantly, start taking small steps to honor your own needs and preferences again. Remember, you deserve to be treated with respect, kindness, and consideration. You deserve to feel safe in your own home. You deserve to have your thoughts and feelings valued. And you deserve to rediscover the joy and purpose that brought meaning to your life before this relationship consumed it. Your story isn't over, and healing is possible. Take it one day at a time. Be patient with yourself, and remember that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. If this video has helped you understand your situation better, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel for more content about emotional healing and healthy relationships. Share your thoughts in the comments below, but please prioritize your safety when sharing personal information online. Thank you for having the courage to seek understanding about your situation. Your willingness to look honestly at these painful patterns is the first step toward building a healthier, happier future for yourself.